want to be unstoppable? Then listen up, because the world doesn't care about your excuses and success won't wait for your pride to catch up. Today, we're diving into the mindset that separates the masters from the mediocre. This is about building the kind of inner strength that doesn't break under pressure and shedding the ego that keeps you from leveling up. If you're ready to lead, grow, and dominate, then let's go. Step 1, mental fortitude is built, not born. Mental fortitude is not something you're simply born with. It's not a gift handed out at birth to a chosen few. It's not written in your DNA like the color of your eyes or the shape of your jawline. Mental fortitude is earned. It's forged through experience, discipline, and the deliberate decision to keep showing up, especially when it's easier not to. People look at those who are mentally strong and say, they're just built different. No, they're not. What they've done is build themselves differently, day by day, challenge by challenge, failure by failure. They've chosen to lean into discomfort rather than shy away from it. They've decided that resilience is more valuable than relief, that growth is more important than convenience. Think about it. How do you build a muscle? You put it under stress. You push it past its comfort zone. You do reps when your body wants to quit. The same principle applies to your mind. If you protect it from stress, if you always choose the easy path, if you avoid every hard conversation or difficult decision, then you never give it the opportunity to grow. You stay mentally soft, weak, dependent on external motivation rather than internal drive. Mental fortitude is built in those quiet moments when nobody's watching. When the alarm clock goes off and your body says no, but you get up anyway. When the world doubts you and you use that doubt as fuel. When you fail publicly, instead of folding, you study the loss, adjust, and come back sharper. That's how it's built, through repetition, through resolve, through choosing what's hard but right over what's easy and empty. And here's the truth. Building mental toughness isn't a one-time event. It's not a weekend seminar or a single breakthrough moment. It's a daily grind, a ritual of pushing the limits of what your mind says you can handle. It's learning to override the noise, the fear, the emotion, and getting locked into your mission no matter what mood you're in. Because moods fade, mission stays. Most people wait to feel ready. They wait for courage to magically show up. But that's not how it works. You act first and the strength follows. Confidence comes after the commitment, not before. Fortitude is built through action in the absence of certainty. It's in the reps you do when you don't know if it'll work. It's in the hours you grind when no one is clapping for you. It's in the pain you face without flinching because you've decided that who you're becoming matters more than how you feel in the moment. You don't need to be born with it. You need to choose it every single day. Step 2, the ego is the enemy of growth. The ego is one of the most subtle and seductive obstacles to growth. It disguises itself as confidence, as self-respect, even as strength, but in reality, it's fear wearing a mask. The ego doesn't want you to grow. It wants you to stay exactly where you are because growth requires humility, and humility threatens the ego's fragile sense of identity. When the ego is in control, you become obsessed with protecting your image instead of building your substance. You stop asking questions because you don't want to look like you don't know. You avoid feedback because hearing the truth might sting. You resist change because change means admitting that your current way isn't good enough. And to the ego, not good enough feels like death. So it fights, it clings, it justifies, it rationalizes, it tells you that you've already got it figured out, even when deep down you know you don't. The ego wants you to believe you've arrived so you never feel the need to evolve. It thrives on comparison, always looking sideways, needing to feel superior, needing to win, needing to be seen. But growth doesn't happen in comparison. Growth happens in vulnerability. It happens when you say, I don't know, but I'm willing to learn. I failed, but I'll try again. I'm not there yet, but I'm getting better. See, the ego fears being wrong, it fears embarrassment, it fears looking small. But all those things, being wrong, making mistakes, being a beginner, those are the exact ingredients of real growth. The ego says, I know, while growth says, teach me. The ego says, I'm already enough, while growth says, I can be more. The ego is fixed, rigid, delicate. Growth is fluid, adaptable, resilient. The most dangerous thing the ego does is convince you that it's protecting you. It tells you that pride is power, that image is identity, that being seen as successful is more important than actually becoming successful. It convinces you to defend your limitations, to cling to your past, to avoid risks that might expose your weaknesses. But all that does is build a cage around your potential. You start living for appearances, not progress. You start making decisions based on what strokes your ego, not what strengthens your character. People with fragile egos often avoid putting themselves in environments where they might be outperformed or outclassed. They avoid mentors because they can't stand being coached. They avoid feedback because it threatens their illusion of perfection. They avoid the grind because it forces them to confront their own gaps. But the truth is, every single one of those uncomfortable moments is a door to growth. And the ego is the lock. You don't learn when your ego is speaking louder than your curiosity. You don't adapt when your ego is more invested in being right than getting better. You don't win long-term when your ego needs to be the smartest person in the room instead of surrounding itself with people who challenge and elevate you. The ego thrives on validation. Growth thrives on truth. The more attached you are to being praised, the less willing you are to be coached. The more you fear looking weak, the more you miss the chance to become strong. The more you care about your reputation, the less energy you have to build real results. Step 3, pain is the pathway to power. Pain is the great teacher that most people try to avoid at all costs. But the truth is, pain isn't your enemy, it's your compass. It points you toward the exact areas of your life that need attention, change, or growth. When you feel pain, physical, emotional, mental, it's not just there to make you suffer, it's there to shape you, to refine you, to reveal where you're still soft, where you still have room to grow, where the work still needs to be done. Everyone wants to be powerful. They want strength, resilience, discipline, confidence. But what they often don't want is the pain that creates it. They want the outcome without the process, but it doesn't work that way. There's no shortcut. Real power is built through pain, not around it. It's forged in the struggle, in the failure, in the discomfort that most people run from. And the ones who rise, they're the ones who lean into it, who don't just tolerate pain, they use it. Every moment of pain is an invitation. It says, are you going to break or are you going to build? Pain exposes your limits and gives you the opportunity to push past them. It's not just a signal of weakness, it's a signal that you're stretching, that you've moved beyond what's easy and into what's meaningful. If you're in pain, it means you're in the arena. It means you're in the process of becoming something more. Think about your proudest moments, the turning points in your life, the milestones you truly earned. Chances are they were all preceded by pain. Whether it was the pain of rejection, the pain of failure, the pain of discipline, or the pain of loss, each one left a scar. But every scar is a sign you survived something that was supposed to take you out. And not only did you survive it, you became stronger because of it. People try to numb their pain with distraction, with comfort, with escape, but all that does is delay growth. Because unprocessed pain turns into patterns, fear, procrastination, self-doubt, insecurity. If you don't face it, it festers. But when you confront it, when you sit with it, when you allow it to do its work, it transforms you. It sharpens your focus. It deepens your perspective. It strengthens your resolve. Pain humbles you. It strips away the illusion that you're invincible. And in doing that, it gives you a choice to become bitter or to become better, to stay broken or to rebuild stronger. Pain reveals the gap between who you are and who you could be, and it dares you to close it. Not by talking about change, but by enduring the fire that creates it. Step 4, let go of being right. Focus on getting it right. The obsession with being right is one of the most limiting mindsets a person can have. It's rooted in ego and insecurity and the fear that being wrong somehow makes you less valuable. But the truth is, the need to constantly be right is a trap. It keeps you defensive, rigid, and closed off from the very feedback that could transform your life. Growth doesn't come from proving you're already correct. It comes from admitting you have more to learn. When you focus on being right, your energy goes into protecting your image instead of improving your reality. You argue to defend yourself, not to discover the truth. You reject new ideas because they challenge your current beliefs. You hold on to old patterns even when they aren't working because change would require you to admit that your previous way wasn't the best. And that admission, no matter how small, feels like a threat to your identity. But here's the shift. If you can let go of the need to be right, you free yourself to start getting it right. You create space for learning, for correction, for insight. You stop viewing mistakes as failures and start seeing them as data. You stop resisting advice and start seeking it. You become more focused on the outcome than on your pride. Getting it right means prioritizing truth over ego. It means you're willing to ask better questions instead of always having the answers. It means you listen with the intent to understand, not to respond. It means that every challenge, every piece of criticism, every obstacle becomes fuel, because now it's not about protecting who you were, it's about building who you're becoming. When your mindset shifts from needing to win the conversation to winning the long game, everything changes. You become less reactive and more reflective. You stop needing to control every detail and start focusing on controlling your growth. You let go of the small wins, the arguments, the one-upmanship, the I told you so moments, and focus instead on the bigger victory, transformation, mastery, evolution. People who are obsessed with being right often plateau. They don't grow because they stop learning. They stop learning because they stop listening, and they stop listening because they believe they already know. But those who strive to get it right, no matter how uncomfortable it is, rise. They improve, they adapt. They outgrow their limitations because they never let their ego write the final chapter. This mindset applies everywhere: business, relationships, health, leadership. The best leaders aren't the ones who never make mistakes. They're the ones who course correct quickly. The best athletes aren't the ones who never fail. They're the ones who take losses as lessons. The best thinkers aren't the ones who are always certain. They're the ones who are constantly questioning, testing, refining. Because they know that evolution requires iteration. And iteration requires the humility to admit, I don't have it all figured out. Letting go of being right doesn't mean you lose your conviction. It means you place your conviction in the right things, not in your ego, but in your growth, not in your pride, but in your purpose, not in protecting your current identity, but in relentlessly pursuing your highest potential. Step 5, your identity is not your limitation. Your identity is not your limitation, but too often people treat it like it is. They lock themselves into a version of who they think they're supposed to be based on where they came from, what others have told them, or what they've done in the past. And then they live inside those walls for the rest of their lives. They say things like, that's just the way I am, or I've never been good at that. And without realizing it, they're using their identity as an excuse, a shield, a ceiling. What you call your identity is often just a pattern, a repeated way of thinking, acting, reacting, formed over time. Maybe it was shaped by your environment, your upbringing, your failures, or even your successes. But just because it's familiar doesn't mean it's permanent. Identity feels solid, but in reality it's fluid. You weren't born with most of your beliefs. You acquired them. And what's acquired can be rewritten. The moment you start tying your identity to a fixed story, you start limiting your potential. I'm not a morning person. I'm an introvert. I'm just not disciplined. These statements don't describe who you are. They describe who you've been. But if you repeat them enough, they become a script you live by, not because you have to, but because you haven't challenged it. Growth demands a shift in identity. You can't step into a higher level performance while clinging to the beliefs of your old self. Who you are today is not a life sentence. It's a snapshot. And transformation starts when you stop asking, who am I? And start asking, who do I need to become? When you start shifting your identity based on your future instead of your past, everything changes. You begin to act in alignment with the person you're building, not the person you've been. And those actions create evidence that you are capable of more, evidence that you can change, evidence that your limits were never real, just reinforced by repetition. This is why it's dangerous to wrap your identity around your job, your title, your personality type, your past achievements, or your failures. Because the moment any of those things change, and they will, you're left feeling lost or stuck. But when you realize that you are the author, not the character, you take the pen back. You stop saying, I can't, and start asking, what would the next version of me do? Your identity should be a foundation, not a prison. It should evolve with your purpose, not pull you back into your past. You weren't meant to stay the same. You weren't meant to protect some fixed idea of yourself just to feel safe. You were meant to grow, to expand, to reimagine yourself over and over again until the person you are matches the mission you've chosen. And that means you need to be willing to shed the labels, rewrite the story, and make your identity a tool for growth, not a reason to settle. Step 6, inner strength is quiet, not loud. Inner strength doesn't need to announce itself. It doesn't scream for attention or demand recognition. It's the quiet force that moves through difficulty without complaining, that stands firm when everything else is shaking, and that chooses purpose over performance. In a world that's constantly shouting, posting, performing, inner strength is still. It's steady. It's rooted not in how things look, but in how things are. Real strength isn't loud. It doesn't need to prove anything. In fact, the louder someone needs to be about their confidence, their toughness, or their success, the more likely it is that they're compensating for something. Because the truly strong don't need validation. They don't need to win every argument or be the loudest voice in the room. Their power comes from certainty, not volume. From self-trust, not ego. Inner strength is waking up when you don't feel like it and still doing the work. It's holding your ground with grace instead of aggression. It's choosing discipline when no one is watching. It's walking away from drama, not because you're weak, but because you're wise enough to know it's not worth your energy. It's being unshakable in your values, your mission, your character, regardless of what the world throws at you. It's easy to fake outer strength. You can posture, bluff, flex, but inner strength can't be faked. It's built over time through failure, resilience, heartbreak, repetition. It's the product of how many times you've been knocked down and chosen to rise anyway. It's what allows you to carry pain with dignity, to lead without controlling, to succeed without needing to boast. When someone has inner strength, you can feel it. They walk into a room and they don't dominate it with noise. They command it with presence. They listen more than they speak. They ask questions instead of assuming they know it all. They don't react, they respond. They're not swayed by opinions, praise, or criticism because their compass is internal. They know who they are, what they stand for, and what they're building toward. This kind of strength doesn't get handed to you. It's earned in solitude, in silence, in struggle. It's cultivated in those private moments where you could take the easy way out and no one would know, but you'd know. And so you choose the harder path. You choose integrity over convenience. You choose growth over comfort. You won't find inner strength in someone who needs to be constantly seen or heard to feel valuable. You'll find it in those who are doing the work quietly, consistently, without applause, in those who lead with humility, in those who have nothing to prove because their life already proves it, in those who are rooted so deeply in purpose that nothing external can shake their internal state. Inner strength isn't about dominating others, it's about mastering yourself. It's not loud because it needs to be. It already knows what it is. So now the question isn't can you grow, it's will you choose to? Will you harden your mind when it's easier to stay soft? Will you soften your ego when it screams to be right, to be seen, to be praised? Will you trade comfort for clarity, noise for power, identity for evolution? Because the path is there. It's not paved with shortcuts or applause, but with pain, truth, humility, and discipline. That's where transformation lives. That's where you stop being a prisoner of your old story and become the author of your new one. This isn't about motivation, it's about activation. You already have what it takes. Now, it's time to strip away the excuses. Let go of the image, step through the pain, and rise into the version of you that doesn't flinch, doesn't fold, and doesn't fake it. The world doesn't need more noise, it needs more substance. More leaders who are built from the inside out. More people who don't just talk about power, but live it quietly, relentlessly, authentically. Harden the mind, soften the ego. That's how you become unstoppable.